Hello, everybody. I want to talk to you about a character that is a mascot for a certain company that now resides in another company. And that character, of course, is this character, Yogi Bear. That's right. Now, believe it or not, Yogi Bear follows the same kind of steps that Bugs Bunny followed back when Bugs Bunny first got started. Now, some of you may not know this. Some of you may. But Bugs Bunny got his start in a Porky Pig cartoon called Holcomb Hare or something like that. I can't think of the name right now. I'm going to look it up, but he got his start in like I said, in a early 1930s Bugs Bunny cartoon. So it only makes, and what happened, believe it or not, was the fact that because of this one cartoon, Bugs Bunny ended up becoming more popular than Porky Pig. It's not a lie, folks. He became more popular than Porky Pig in many ways, to the point that he went on to become the mascot of Warner Brothers. Now, Yogi Bear, of course, did the same thing. It's hard to believe, but he did. He did the same thing. Okay, here's the title of the cartoon. It's called no, that's not it. Well, Wild Hare was Bugs's debut. But anyway, getting back to what I'm saying, Yogi Bear basically followed the same suit as Bugs Bunny. You see, when Yogi Bear first debuted, okay, the cartoon that Bugs Bunny debuted in officially was called Porky's Hare Hunt, and that was in 1938, April 30th, 1938. But anyway, Yogi, like I said, had a similar start as Bugs Bunny. You see, Yogi, when he first debuted in 1958, he debuted as a side cartoon, one of the compilation cartoons, the side cartoons for the Huckleberry Hound show. Now, just like with Porky, Huckleberry Hound was supposed to be like the mascot for Hanna-Barbera at the time. He was supposed to be the mascot. But as soon as Yogi Bear's cartoons started to take off, Yogi Bear's popularity subdued Huckleberry's, and Yogi Bear ended up becoming the mascot. And how did this happen? Well, around 1960, I believe, Yogi Bear got his own cartoon series. It's not a lie. He got his own cartoon series called The Yogi Bear Show. Now, just like the Huckleberry Hound show, Yogi Bear was a compilation show of different cartoons. In Yogi Bear, we were introduced to two new Hanna-Barbera characters, Snagglepuss and Yankee Doodle. Now, Yogi Bear's spot on the Huckleberry Hound show, of course, was replaced by Hokey Wolf. So, anyway, yeah, it was 1961. He got a show, Yogi Bear's show, 1961. And this ran from 61 to about 62, got repeated, of course, throughout the years. But Yogi Bear's popularity soared so much that his final episode on the Yogi Bear show wasn't a compilation show. No, it wasn't, folks. Yogi Bear's popularity was so huge, and the show was so popular that the final episode was more of a half-hour episode. Period. No extra cartoons, nothing like that. It was a half-hour special and a prelude to what would be known later on in the 70s as the Yogi All-Stars, as the All-Star cartoons, if you will. Because basically, in Yogi's Birthday Bash, in which it was called, you had not just Boo Boo, not just Ranger Smith, and not just the turquoise blue early edition of Cindy Bear, but you also had Hokey Wolf, you had Crick Draw, you had Huckleberry Hound, you had Snagglepuss. You know, you had a who's who almost at the time of Hanna-Barbera characters. Then in 1964, Yogi Bear, of course, showed that his popularity had soared to new heights and it surpassed the popularity that I think Hanna-Barbera was hoping for Huckleberry Hound, when Yogi Bear became the first Hanna-Barbera character, period, to star in a theatrical animated film known as Hey There, It's Yogi Bear. Now, the one thing about Hey There, It's Yogi Bear is, just like with any kind of animated film, or just kind of like any new season of an animated cartoon, you're going to see character designs change. You're going to see characters getting a little bit of a makeover and probably looking more fresher and newer and all that. Well, that's exactly what happened with this movie. This movie basically was where we got the current designs of Yogi Bear from. Yogi Bear, Boo Boo, and Cindy and Ranger Smith from. Ranger Smith, Boo Boo, and Yogi were all kind of more curved out, more rounded out, more, not so flat, if you will, but more rounded out and everything. And Cindy Bear, of course, was given an entirely different makeover. I mean, a huge makeover. Cindy Bear, of course, was the one that got the huge makeover, because she went from being a turquoise blue to being completely beige color, almost similar to Yogi and Boo Boo's. And everything about her, some of the things did change. Like her yellow skirt, now blue. Her little neck dress, or whatever you call it, with the necklace, gone. The lipstick part, in her first appearance, gone. And everything. The hat that she had was gone. Her parasol she still had, but it was smaller. But she just got a complete overhaul, and it was definitely the best decision Hanna-Barbera ever made, because I have a picture right now in my room with Yogi, Boo Boo, Ranger Smith, and Cindy's design, or redesign, her overhaul that happened in 1964's Hey There's Yogi Bear, has stuck with her since then. That's pretty cool. But anyway, Hey There Yogi Bear went on to be a financial success for Hanna-Barbera in 1964. And throughout the years and decades, it was shown on the Saturday morning matinees in theaters. Basically, during the summers and all that, during the summers of the 80s and the 90s and times, and even the 70s, I believe, Hey There Yogi Bear would be shown on Saturday morning matinees in theaters. Now, again, Yogi's popularity soared to new heights. However, there would not be a new Yogi Bear cartoon for another 8 years, though, which was kind of funny. And the reason of this, of course, was because Hanna-Barbera was working on all these other new shows, like the Flintstones, the Jetsons, some of the adventure shows like Space Ghost, and and stuff like that, and and it wasn't until about 1972 that we got a new Yogi Bear cartoon, and that was Yogi's Ark Lark, which was part of the ABC's Saturday Morning Superstar movie program. Now, this was pretty good. This, of course, spun off into Yogi's Gang, which was the first new Yogi Bear series, or cartoon series, about that same year. It spun off into that. The only thing about that cartoon at the time was it was actually, believe it or not, it was actually one of the first ever E/I cartoons of the time. Educational cartoons, because it dealt with Yogi's gang fighting against pollution and fighting against all these different villains and stuff that would be about spreading that would be about that would be supporting pollution. They'd be facing villains that would support pollution, support lies and greed and hot-headedness, and it was it was pretty cool. It was a pretty good series, from what I understand. Oh yeah, there was a show that aired in 1967 and 68 called Yogi Bear and Friends, but it was more importantly just I think an extension. Yeah, it's just basically from what it says here on Wikipedia, it was basically a rerun of the classic shorts. That's all it was. But this time, it was a extension of Yogi Bear, Huckleberry, Hokey, Pixie Dixie, Yankee Doodle, and Snagglepuss. That's all Yogi Bear and Friends was. And that, like I said, that was 1967 to 68. But again, of course, like I said, the official first new show that came out was around 1972, 73, and this ran for about 2 seasons. It was Yogi's Gang, and again, like I said, it dealt with the uh, characters fighting off all these different villains who supported pollution and lies and hot-headedness and greed and stuff like that. And then they would appear later on, 2 years later, after the final season of Yogi's Gang. They would appear 2 years later in Laugh Olympics. Now, of course, this was also known as Scooby-Doo's Laugh Olympics, but it was basically Laugh Olympics. It was Hanna-Barbera's portrayal, if you will, of the Olympics done Hanna-Barbera style. And again, like I said, it was another one of those all-star, and I mean really mega all-star cartoons, because it featured basically two eras, the Yogi era, the Scooby-Doo era, and of course you had some original villains put in there. And Yogi captained, of course, the Yogi Yahooies, which consisted, like I said, of all the Yogi Bear era cartoon characters like Yogi himself and Boo Boo and Cindy and Hokey and Huckleberry and Snagglepuss, and well, Snagglepuss was one of the announcers, but more like Huckleberry, Hokey, Pixie, Dixie, Jinx, Yankee Doodle. And the only exception for them was Magilla Gorilla, who came out in the 70s, but I guess because they felt he fit more into the Yogi Bear style of things, they put him in the Yogi Yahooies. Then around the same time, in between that time, from 77 to 79, in between that time, another Yogi Bear cartoon came out called Yogi Space Race. Now this was kind of different because, again, it was another Yogi Bear All-Star cartoon, but it was kind of different because it gave Yogi a different sidekick called Scare Bear. It didn't give him Boo Boo, it gave him Scare Bear. Go figure. It gave him Scare Bear. And basically what it is, okay, basically here's what it says here on Wikipedia. It premiered in 1978, ran for only a few months, 2 months actually, believe it or not, because I don't think it did so well, on NBC. It had 3 cartoons. Yogi Space Race, of course, was known as Galaxy Goof-Ups. And it was given its own show to reduce the 90-minute time slot, which reduced Yogi's Space Race to 60 minutes in 79 into 80. Yeah, it was a 90-minute Saturday morning cartoon program block. But basically, you had Galaxy Goof-Ups, like I said, which was a space race with Yogi Bear, Huckleberry, and like I said, some new characters.